Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Children's Collaborative State Summer Reading Workshop. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Derek Ivey, and I am the Youth Services Coordinator at the Suffolk Cooperative Library System. My colleagues from 13 other New York library systems and I came all together now to create this morning's workshop. We're a quirky, creative crayon cohort who is asking, aren't you glad you came this morning? We know you won't be blue after you hear these amazing ideas. Are you ready to hear some of these amazing ideas? I'm sure you are. Purple, white, black, green, pink, yellow, and silver, colors that I could not think of puns for. So please drop your ideas in the chat. More importantly, library staff members from across the state are here to share their programs all together now. From summer reading water parties to tiny town playtime, Dungeons and Dragons to pirate treasure hunts, there is a whole slew of amazing programming ideas that will be presented to bring your patrons all together now at your library this summer. Today's workshop is the true spirit of the 2023 slogan, All Together Now. Now, more than ever, we must come together to show the strength, creativity, and know-how that we as library staff members showcase in everything we do. Before we get into the good stuff, I do have some housekeeping to go through. Please take this time right now to change your Zoom name to the name you used to register for today's program for easy attendance taking. That's both first and last name. One of the easy ways to do this is to click the 3 dots on your small Zoom box and then click Rename. Each system rep will be sending professional development certificates to their own system. Our presenters today will have a 10-minute block for their presentations. The presentation itself can be anywhere from 5 to 8 minutes long. The time left will be dedicated to a Q&A from attendees. As someone is presenting, feel free to drop your question into the chat, but please start it with the letter Q so we know to come back to it. For our presenters, when you would like to advance the slide, just say next slide. For timing purposes, please pay attention to our amazing silver friend, Jack, who will be holding up a 2-minute warning and 1-minute warning. As a note, we will have breaks throughout our time together. This entire event will be recorded. The videos will be shared at a later date. Now, let's all come together to hear from our incredible colleagues. Up first, we have Becky Sloan from Clifton Springs Library, who will be talking about their summer reading water party. Let's get that presentation up, and then Becky can take it away.
Are you seeing the right one now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent. Too many screens.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm Becky Sloan, and I'm the Youth Curriculum Coordinator at the Clifton Springs Library in the OWL system. And I'm really excited to be here today. Every year, I do a summer reading water play kickoff party, and then an end of summer water play party. So I'm going to just tell you a little bit about what I do. Next. All right, the weapons. I use sponges without the scrubby part on them, water guns, the water balls, and the things in the upper right-hand corner I prefer over water guns because they don't look like guns, but you use what you've got, and we've gotten a lot of donations of water guns, so we use those too. Okay, the other thing on here that you will need is big plastic containers to hold your water. Next. The big attraction is my kitty car wash. If you build it, they will come. This is made with 3/4 inch PVC pipe, pool noodles, and Dollar Tree plastic tablecloths, sponges, and I make it rainbow color because it's my favorite color, and the kids just love it. The water comes out of holes that you drill with a drill, and a hose connects to it. Next. I also have a kiddie pool. So this program is for all ages. So the little kids like to play in the kiddie pools, but you'll see at the end I have pictures that show that even the older kids like to play in them too. And I make these in the middle upper area, I make these little sponge balls for them to play with. Anything really that you have that's plastic, you can throw in there and the kids will play with them. Those I got on Amazon. I have 3 of them. And if I do have older kids playing with it, I do separate. So there's one for the little babies and toddlers. And then if I need to, I split them, so one is for the older kids. Next. All right. The tween attack, I use those squirters because they are awesome and they squirt really far. Buckets, you can buy buckets from the Dollar Tree, but what I do is, ginormous is my favorite size. So when I go to the movies, my husband and I get the really big buckets, and usually I buy the commemorative ones. And that's what I use, but you can get, buckets anywhere. But I say they were free, but they weren't. They cost a mint because, it's a ridiculous price for popcorn. So that's what I use. In the past, I have made a wide circle. Each kid gets one of those blasters and a bucket. And they stay far apart from each other so that nobody gets, an eye out. And they love it. It actually dissolves into just going to the big containers, the big plastic containers, that you store stuff. And they just grab huge buckets of water and, wet everyone. So that is a really fun thing. This thing is not very expensive at all. I also ask for, community help, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes. Next. Show me the money. So I usually get my something from Lowe's every year. And when I write my letter, I don't write a monetary amount. The cost for that kitty car wash, and like I said, I really recommend the 3/4 inch. I used 1/2 inch when I built it and paid for it myself the first time, and it's just not very sturdy. So I did go and ask for the 3/4 inch. If you list all the supplies, sometimes they will just say, yes, go get all your supplies. You need to make sure that you bring it into your local Lowe's at the beginning of the month. They'll probably give you a monetary amount instead. If they give you a monetary amount and it's not going to cover, what I have done in the past is I've asked to speak to the manager, and I asked them either to let me buy different things that will cost, the amount that they gave me, or I'll just ask them if they could please, fit the bill. And what they've done usually is they just say, go get whatever you need and I will approve it. Walmart, I ask for donations for specific things. Again, they probably will give you a gift card, but you do need to bring in the letter to Lowe's. You cannot mail it in. You have to actually bring it in to them. And I recommend doing it at the beginning of the month. Okay, next. A call for help. The other thing that you can do, and this is how I got most of my guns, I put a list on social media requesting donations of things people may have that they don't use anymore. I talk to parents who I know their kids have probably outgrown their water guns. I display the list in multiple locations in the library. I make an Amazon wish list and I post it on social media. And I make a summer reading giving. I have made a summer reading giving tree once with requests for items that you need. So those are just some things that I do. I'm sure you guys have, we all know how to ask for money. Okay, next. Where do I find my minions? I mean volunteers. The Boy Scouts have been my go-to National Honor Society. The head of the National Honor Society at my school is really fantastic, and I always get a few kids from that. And the Boy Scouts actually have to do volunteer hours, so that's a good place. And you know, I commandeer unsuspecting teens that come in for books. And then they're like, how can they tell me no? Because I'm like really excited. So I think they have a hard time saying no, but whatever works. Okay, next. So here are some pictures. Now these pictures I think are from 2021. And just to show you, one thing that I do, I said is that the kickoff, I usually tell them I need to stay dry, but if they come back at the end of the year, they'll be able to get me wet. So this was end of year. Like I said, it was 2021, so we didn't have as many kids as we could have. Okay, next. This is just another picture collage. Oh, look at that. Some of the pictures did not show. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. And next slide.
I have the computer audio down to 0.
Questions?
Becky, thank you so much. Your energy is infectious and your Bitmoji game is strong. We did get a question. I don't know if this is really more for the general group. So someone asked, our library is rural and we don't have a Lowe's or Walmart within 35 miles. Does anyone know if more rural libraries have had success with donation requests in a situation like this? I was wondering though, just curious. So as far as these donations, are you going directly to a manager? Are you going to customer service? Who are you going to at the Walmart or the Lowe's?
Okay, so Walmart, I just turn them in. Actually, Walmart, I mail. And then I follow up with phone calls. Lowe's, I have asked questions in Lowe's, and that's how I found out that you have to bring them in. And you actually ask for the donation person and you hand it in. Otherwise, they'll just give it to them. And then I am very politely, consistently calling or asking. Some people call it badgering, but you know.
Consistency is key.
Yes, and you know, they usually will start with the $50. One year I got the materials to make a dunking booth, and those materials were really expensive. I haven't made it yet. I still haven't. Yeah, so it's much better to just ask a manager because they're more likely, especially when you tell them that it's a public library, we don't have a lot of money. I remember one time I walked in to spend my own money on lightsaber tubes, you know, the tubes that go around the LED or the tube lights. And I was asking directions and I told him that I was from the library and he's like, oh, I'll pay for that stuff. So you just have to be, you know, willing to.
And Becky, just one more quick question because we're at time. Someone asked, would you suggest reaching out now or waiting more toward the summer season?
So I would ask during the spring because that's when people are cleaning out stuff that they don't use anymore. Oh, you mean for your stuff? Oh, well, it depends on how much time you have. I always ask in May, so I have plenty of time to make whatever I'm going to do.
Awesome.
But as far as community, I put the stuff out March, April.
Thank you so much. Really just fantastic energy, and ginormous is my favorite size, is my favorite quote so far from the day. So thank you for that as well. All right,
it should
folks.
Be your favorite size too. All right,
I'm
thanks.
gonna get that ginormous popcorn. It's the only way to be. Up next, we have Dawn Swanson from the Kennedy Free Library, who will be talking about their summer reading program. Dawn, whenever you're ready.
Okay, good morning. Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, all right, great. So I'm the director of the Kennedy Free Library. Right in the hamlet of Kennedy, we have just under 500 people. We're located inside the town of Poland, which has just about 2,200 people. So we are a fairly rural library. We had been without a formal summer reading program for a number of years. It was really important to us that we have a big impact post-COVID to bring people, children, and families back into the library. So I created an 8-week program, which was the 4 weeks of July, the 4 weeks of August. It was strategic to work with our Town of Poland recreation program so that I didn't step on any toes. They meet Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. So I planned our program for Thursdays. It was important to not be in competition in such a small town with other groups with the same target age range. We had our program from 9:30 to 11:30 in the morning, geared for children 5 to 12. Although again, in a rural library, it was important to be flexible. If somebody had another child that was 4 years old, just under or just over our age range, I still allowed them to attend. I reached out to various community organizations to find those that were interested in making presentations. Because of our budget restrictions, it was important that we find organizations that would present at low or no cost. I found 8 organizations willing to present. I communicated clearly with them to assign them a week of the summer so that I could advertise to the community what organization would be here on what week. Each week I had a different organization make a presentation. I called and emailed them ahead of time to find out exactly what they would be speaking on. I looked to see if we had a book in our children's area to support this theme, and if not, I purchased one. It was a great way to find out where we were missing some of the key themes in our collection. I opened each session with a story to present the theme, and then I introduced our presenter and allowed them however much time they needed. We also communicated as clearly as we could about how much time they would need. I encouraged each presenter to do a mock presentation on their own so that they would know how much time they needed. When they were finished, I had planned and prepared games, crafts to support the theme. Sometimes the presenters were able to contribute to this part of the program, came prepared to do that, and sometimes they didn't. They would just leave after their presentation, but we worked with it no matter what they did. I was also able to purchase prizes for attendance that would support the theme of the week. So the 8 organizations that shared with us were a local dairy farm family came and presented about where our food and milk come from. The Fenton Museum and History Center presented about toys and games and what they looked like throughout history. The county transfer station and landfill presented about where our trash and recycling go and why it's important to our environment. The YMCA presented fitness by facilitating an exercise class. The Master Gardeners Association taught us about good bugs and bad bugs, and they brought cocoons and butterflies to share with the children. The Kennedy Fire Department presented about fire safety. They brought the ambulance and a fire truck, and they let the kids climb all over, inside and out of them. Cattaraugus County Bank presented to our families about financial literacy for children. The Allegheny National Fish Hatchery presented about what a fish hatchery does and why it's important to our environment. Outside of our 8-week program, we wanted to do a special program open to the community to wrap up our summer reading. We were able to have the Messinger Woods Animal Sanctuary do a presentation on their birds of prey. They brought 2 types of endangered owls that they had rescued, and a community member that was associated with the organization generously offered to pay for it. Don't be afraid to use whatever contacts are available to you. So an example week from our summer reading, when the gentleman came from the transfer station and the landfill to present to us, we read the book, What a Waste by Jeff French. Then our presenter talked with the children in detail about where their trash goes, where their recycling goes, what companies do with it, why they want it. He explained that plastic and other recyclables are sold to companies, it's woven into our clothing, it's reused in other ways. We played 3 games. We divided it into teams. We worked within a timer to build the tallest tower out of aluminum cans. We had a relay race with buckets of water using recycled cups. We used newspaper and masking tape to build the tallest self-standing towers. For a craft, we made bird feeders. I do still have one here. From just 1 liter milk jugs, put a little dowel and a little string and the bird seed. They were able to decorate their bird feeder to take home using recycled materials. And we filled the bottom of it with bird seed for them. For their attendance prize that day, we gave them recycling wheels so that they could take them home to color, and they could use them at home to decide where does this tin can go in recycling? Where does this newspaper go? What do I do with it? For prizes and books that we needed to purchase for our program, we used a summer reading grant that was available to us. For craft supplies, I posted a link to our Amazon wish list on social media, and I advertised in the library and in our newsletter the needs that we had. Our community is very generous with our children's programming. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you so much, Dawn. Does anyone have any questions for Dawn? Dawn, I really love you going out into the community and bringing those 8 organizations in. I mean, what a way to really get out there. I always feel like sometimes we can be afraid to have those asks, but you just got to do it, right? Yeah,
absolutely. And they loved it too. We were supporting them, getting their mission out as well as ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's for everyone. It benefits everyone, definitely. Yeah. Do we have any other questions? Let's see. So Dana asks, were all the presentations done for free? Did you give donations?
So I communicated as clearly as I could with each of them. I had reached out to more than the 8. I chose the 8 that were willing to present completely for free. There were some that would say they would work on donation, but if I could get them for free, then I set those other organizations aside for now to be used in the future.
Absolutely. Elizabeth Cowley said, bravo to Dawn from another rural library. Does anyone else have any other questions? All right, Dawn. Well, thank you so much for spending your morning with us and for sharing your amazing program. Really incredibly inspiring. And if anyone has any other questions, you can always drop them in the chat. We'll keep an eye on it for you, Dawn.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Okay, up next, we have Jessica Park from the Smithtown Library, who will be talking about Tiny Town Playtime. Jessica, when you're ready.
Okay. Good morning. So I'm Jessica Park. I'm a children's librarian at the Smithtown Library. My program is Tiny Town Playtime. Tiny Town was basically a mini town that we set up in our program room for kids ages 2 to 5 years old. And then we had different activities at each place in town that were geared towards the kids in that age group. Next slide, please. So we couldn't have done this without our awesome teen volunteers. The night before the program, the teens worked with
is this the Summers?
So the night before the program, the teens worked with our teen librarian, Katie Brand, to build different objects for our mini town out of cardboard, paper, and whatever they wanted to decorate with. And then I had planned out our town in advance. So I gave Katie a list of everything that I was hoping the teens could build. And then they built stuff like a postal counter for our post office, ticket booth for our theater, that kind of stuff. And then here are a few pictures of some of the things that they built. Next slide, please. So our teen volunteers also helped us out the day of the program. We had a teen stationed at each place in our town, and then the teen was responsible for helping the kids with the activities at their station, as well as engaging the kids in dramatic play centered around their particular place in town. So in total, we had 10 different places in our town, and each one had different activities that the teens could engage the kids in. Next slide, please. So we had a post office in our town. The volunteers built us a little post office counter, and then we had just a table and chairs where the kids could fill out postcards. So we had blank postcards that they could just draw on, and then we had some where they could trace letters for some letter practice. And then the teen at that station just helped them mail their postcards. So I had some stamps that I printed on sticker paper, and then we had a little, you might be able to see it in there, a little mailbox. So then the kids could mail their postcards. Next slide, please. We also had a library, of course. So our volunteers built us a little mini circulation desk. I pulled a ton of picture books and shelved them on a couple carts. The teen there helped the kids get library cards at the little mini circ desk, which was just, we printed out an image of our actual library card and wrote like a little, put a little space for them to write their names. And then the teens also helped the kids pick out books, and the kids could sit and read in the library, or they could pretend to check out books at the little circ desk. Next slide, please. This one is our grocery store. The teens built us some little grocery store shelves and a little checkout counter. So then we just filled the shelves with play food. And then the kids could shop, or they could buy food from the checkout counter. We also did a little grocery store scavenger hunt because our patrons really love scavenger hunts. So that was just pictures of different groceries hidden around the store, and then the teens could give the kids hints. Next slide, please. So we also had a playground. Our teens built a little ice cream truck for us. And then for the actual playground, we set up the library's indoor slide, our ball pit, and our play tunnels to make a mini indoor playground. So then the kids could play on the playground, and then they could also order ice cream from the ice cream truck. So they could order scoops of vanilla, chocolate, or strawberry, and then the teen working at the ice cream truck would give them just a paper ice cream craft with the different flavors that they ordered, and then we just had a table nearby for them to set that up to assemble their craft. Next slide, please. So then we also had a school. This one, our teens didn't build anything for. We just set out tables and chairs and a chalkboard easel that we had. And then we set out some Play-Doh letter mats, scissor practice worksheets, and some chalk for drawing on the easel. And then the teen at that station just helped the kids with those activities and basically like pretended to be the teacher. Next slide, please. So we also had a theater. Our teens built us a little ticket booth, and then kids could purchase tickets from the ticket booth. After they bought their tickets, they could play in the puppet theater, or they could make their own puppet, and the teens were there to help them with whatever they needed help with. Next slide, please. We had a construction site. This one was super simple. Our teens didn't build anything, and we basically just put out our play tools and pretty much every block that we owned. Then we had a teen stationed there that was like helping kids build if they needed it, but for the most part, they were just pretty much in charge of keeping the mess as contained as possible to that corner of the room. Next slide, please. So we had an aquarium. We had another ticket booth that the teens built, and the kids could buy tickets there as well. The teens also built us some aquarium exhibits. I didn't get any pictures of those, but those were basically just flat pieces of cardboard wrapped in blue paper and then decorated with different types of sea creatures. And then kids could also feed the sharks. So you can see that in the picture here. So we just gathered up any sea creature toys that we had, put them in a bucket, and then kids tried to toss them into the shark's mouth. Next slide, please. We also had an art museum. So our teens built another ticket booth. Kids could purchase tickets there too. And then we had a gallery of artwork on the wall that kids could look at, which was really just different coloring sheets of different famous paintings. And then we had some of those coloring sheets out for the kids as well, plus blank frames on coloring sheets for the kids to draw their own pictures. And then once they were done, they could take those home with them, or they could have the teen hang it up in the gallery. Next slide, please. Okay, and then last up, our last station was our restaurant. This is a pizza parlor. So then the kids got to order pizza from the teen at our restaurant. So they got a little menu, and then they got a pizza craft that had basically all of the toppings that they ordered for their pizza. Next slide, please. So since we ran the program for kids ages 2 to 5, we did ask grown-ups to stay, and then altogether between grown-ups, kids, and teens, we had about 70 people in the room, which was about perfect for the size of our room. As far as cost goes, the program was essentially free. I only used things that we already owned and craft materials that we regularly keep in stock. So even though it was a lot of work to put everything together, it was super budget friendly. And then next slide. That is Tiny Town. Any questions?
Well, that is just the cutest darn thing I've ever seen, Jessica. We do have a few questions. So Crystal asked, did this program take place on one day or was it for multiple days?
So the part for the kids was just one day. It was about an hour just for the kids. We did have the night before the teens building everything. So that was the only part that wasn't on the same day.
Gotcha. Alyssa asks, how long did the children have to visit all of the stations?
So they had an hour in the room, and then we let them just go from station to station however they wanted. It worked out pretty well. Nobody was like crowding any one particular station.
Sure. And how long was the whole program itself? Was it only the 1 hour or did you have different sessions?
It was just the 1 hour. I think in the future, we'd probably like to do maybe back-to-back sessions just to try to accommodate more people, but this was our first time trying it, so we just did it for the one session.
Sure. We have a question here that says, what did the kids use to purchase money?
We just had little printed money, and then I know this
No
isn't
real
how it
dollars or
really
anything?
works, but they could get the money when they were purchasing the tickets and then just sort of hand it over.
Got it. Fair enough. Let's see. Do you register kids in advance?
We did register in advance. We registered, I think, about 40 kids in advance.
Okay. And Chrissy shared, this would be a core memory for me as a kid. Yeah, this is really fantastic. And I really think kind of the all together now theme, you know, not only is it the town, but you're working with multiple departments in the library to create this program. So that's really another take on it within the library building as well. So everyone's giving you lots of props. So thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing this with us. I think you've inspired a lot of people. And folks with smaller libraries are thinking about ways to maybe fit it into their spaces if they don't have tons of room. So that's you've really lit a spark within folks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I do want to share that we are working behind the scenes to try and figure out how to add what's happening to our presentations today. So we hope to get that up. We'll keep you posted. All right, let's move on to our next presentation for the day. Let's welcome Saptarshi Lahiri from Liverpool Public Library, who will be talking about Dungeons & Dragons for tweens and families. Saptarshi, whenever you're ready.
All righty. Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me today as part of the workshop. So I'm going to talk about the Dungeons & Dragons program that we started recently at Liverpool Public Library. We are a suburb of Syracuse, New York, for those who don't know. It's a really large school district, so it's a very large library. Next slide. I just wanted to share this poster for our last event. I just love the Busta Rhymes line. All righty, next slide, please. So we host a lot of tabletop gaming programs, not a lot of tabletop role-playing games as far as I know. We do chess nights, we have board game nights with adults with disabilities, with kids. We just leave board games out for, tween scene and tween hour and things like that. Mahjong, we kind of started recently, but Dungeons and Dragons has sort of been the missing piece. And I see a lot of different branches around, in our area doing it. So we've always kind of wanted to do it. So it started out as a patron's private event. She was basically like reserving like a space in our library, and she was just running it on her own. So she's really passionate, and she wanted to be a DM, which, that was kind of like a boon for us. Like that kind of fell out of the sky and, landed in our laps, which was amazing. So our patron, whose name's Megan Kelly, she reached out as a community partner, and she wanted to kind of do this more regularly, and she wanted to know how she could do that. So we just thought like, hey, why not run it as a program, as a recurring program once every Saturday, like once a month, every Saturday. We can just have a Dungeons and Dragons. So January, we started doing this program. Next slide. So that was our very first program, and that's Megan. You can see her at the head of the table. She was our DM, and around the table are all our attendees. We had a huge turnout. We had some staff helpers. And next slide. So before we begin, she puts out these giant sticky pad things up on the wall to set out kind of, expectations for how the game's going to go, for people that have never played the game before, for people that have never, who are completely new to role-playing or, tabletop games, what character sheets are, because that can be like really overwhelming for people who have never played Dungeons and Dragons. It was for me. I've never played, even though, I have friends who play all the time. And then the 3 pillars of D&D, which I really like, she kind of set out like the 3 kind of thematics of how you can approach D&D. Like it can be like this really exploratory thing, like, make what you want of it. Like it's a storytelling thing. It's, you can be whatever character you want to be, or you could, engage in combat. Like that's really exciting for some kids. Like they want to, have these showdowns or whatever. Or it could be, just hanging out with your friends. Like even if you're not into role playing, you're not into crafting a story, you're just hanging out with your friends, having a great time. So I really love that she sets those out, and I've tried to, replicate that. Next slide. So as for logistics, our community partner acted as DM for our first program, and she brought all the materials. Like she brought like a game grid, which is like a game board essentially. And the game grid, I'll show you a picture of that. It's basically something that you can like write on with like a dry erase marker, and like, you can basically draw whatever you want on it. You can draw like, like a cave, or, like the terrain where your action will be happening. And those are very cheap to purchase. So she brought all of that, and she brought some like sets of die and stuff like that. And people brought their own stuff because we had like a lot of, dedicated players who had played the game before, and they really, were super like already into the culture. So they brought their own like, specialized dice set, and they brought their own like characters and figures and whatnot. But we supplied some, the handbooks and the Dungeon Master's Guide and the Monster Manual. And the Monster Manual, even if you don't necessarily need it, if the DM introduces a dungeon into your scenario, into a monster into your dungeon scenario, you kind of need to look up what the monster is and, what the monster is capable of doing. And those things are basically like little encyclopedias that, so you have to sort of have them on hand. Next slide. So we basically provided the staff, the staff was just going around. We were not DMing, thank God. We were just going around, helping new players, trying to figure out like how to make their character sheets if they hadn't done them before. That can get complicated, especially you'd be surprised like how many kids struggle with literacy issues. Basically just writing down their like, character traits and points and then adding them up and how to deploy them. Like that can be a challenge. Like you don't necessarily have all that information like, at your fingertips if you're not a seasoned player. We provide the tech. We have the overhead projector. If someone wants to connect to the smart board and plug into their Roll20 digital game board, they can do that. And we provide the space. Currently, we are in this room, which has an occupancy of 25, and we get really good turnout. That's 17 to 20 kids and 4 or 5 adults. So it gets very cozy in that room. So I'm thinking of moving to a larger room. So word to the wise, if you want to do this, I will, and you expect a large turnout, you probably should get a larger, an auditorium type of space ahead of time. All right, next slide. So I wanted to ensure the sustainability and continuity of the program. I did not want to rely on just one community partner for this. So the last time that we did this, she was actually unable to DM and she had to go out of town. And so I was like, uh-oh, what am I gonna do now? So you have to do a little bit of outreach to ensure that, you have some alternative options who can DM, and you have enough staff to cover the event. And you want to have some program partners local businesses or local gaming communities, or just reach out to your community that that's served by your library. Next slide. Okay, I'll hurry this up. I have 1 minute left to go. So this was our second program. I reached out to some friends. That's my friend Manny on the left, and that's Ben on the right. They're each DMing a campaign. And Ben is the partner of one of our staff members. So, talk to your staff. If you have a large staff, there's people in the community who are already play. So moving forward, next slide. That's those are our staff who are helping. Those are our pages. You will always have somebody at the library, who has a passion for the game. You should always try to enlist their help as much as you can. Don't, try to wing it all on your own. Next slide. And I reached out to this really cool local store that we have in our area. It's called Play the Game, Read the Story. They have done programs with us in the past, and the owner and the guy who runs the shop is a nerd. And he gave me lots of tips. He gives us a discount so we can purchase stuff. He gives us some stuff for free. So I purchased dice set from him, or extra manuals and things like that. And he gives me a really good deal on things. So moving on, next slide. And always, have these items on hand. You should have extra sets of die. You should have some blank and pre-filled character sheets. So if you purchase the D&D starter set, that already has those things with them. So that's $20 purchase. So it's very, very minimal. Game boards, again, they're not very expensive. They can be they range from $5 for the very basic grids to you can get advanced bespoke versions of just about everything, which can run up to hundreds of dollars. And for fun, you should try to have some character figures if you can, and you can buy specialized ones, or you can just make your own. You can craft them. You can make chess pieces of your character or something. Moving along, next slide. So you can use other digital resources. There's Roll20, which I've used before. And the great advantage of this is it's largely free. I think it's a freemium model. You can get a paid subscription, but you can do a lot of stuff for free. And the great thing is it basically does your character for you. So if you can't figure it out on your own paper and pencil, and figure out what your points add up to and what traits your character has, this will basically do it for you. It will just spit out a character with all the traits and your spell casting points and whatever. And next slide. And there's also D&D Beyond. I think this is the paid, there's only a paid version, but the great advantage of this is, I'll finish it up. The great advantage of this is it kind of creates like its own DM. So it builds an encounter for you if you don't have a DM. And yeah, so those are some resources you can definitely check out. Any questions?
Awesome, Saptarshi. So we are at time, but there are a couple of just simple questions that I think we could do a yes or no here. Do you use Adventure Guild modules for the pre-made adventures?
That would be a question for a DM, but I don't
Fair.
think we use Adventure Guild models.
All right. Did you keep it to a certain age? tweens?
We did not. It was a family-oriented group, so it was tweens, teens, adults. We totally encourage adults to come. Like some parents wanted to come just on their own, and they got their kids who had never played. So that was a great opportunity for them to kind of bond playing the game. And
Absolutely.
we created the opportunity for them.
And then one more quick question. Did you hold registration?
Yeah, all our events have a pre-online registration. So we just did we put it in the calendar and people registered for it like they would at any of our events.
Awesome.
So yeah,
Was
it's
there a
family
specific time that
intergenerational.
you held it?
Pardon me?
Specific time of day?
Yeah, it was at a specific time. We did it on Saturday afternoons,
Oh,
noon to
perfect.
3 p.m. Yeah, which is
Great.
just the right time, to play a long campaign.
Definitely.
And people love that. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I really thank you so much. I'm sorry I was
Totally, yeah,
rushing you
no
at the
worries.
end there. There is a longer question in the chat if you want to jump on that.
Sure,
but
I'll try
this
to
was
tackle
really,
that.
really fantastic. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
No worries. You're welcome.
All right. So our final presentation of this first hour will be from James Grzybowski, Tammy Lee Young, and Chrissy Hirsch from Uniondale Public Library, and they will be talking about their summer reading art club. Take it away, folks.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, great. First and foremost, I wanted to thank our staff. I wanted to thank, oh, there's an echo. Oh, I can't, okay, there's an echo, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Everybody can hear you.
Awesome, thank you. There's a terrible echo on my end. I don't know how to fix that, but here we go. I wanted to thank librarian Tammy Lee Young, librarian James Grzybowski, and librarian Melissa Bobby. They are amazing, and I'm very grateful to have them as staff members with us. The first thing that we wanted to go through is that we serve a population of 33,000, so it is a large population. Next slide, please. Oh, no, second, yes. We started off with the kids. We do a different technique each month for the kids for our art show. And what we do is we budgeted $200 for this program. So it's a total of 5 programs that run sequentially once a month. And throughout the months, if the kids decide that they want to hand in one of their artworks, they get a special artist kit, which consists of 2 different types of canvases, a paint palette and paintbrushes. So they have something to take home as well. And then at the end of the art show, which is the 5th month, they get all of their artwork displayed throughout the library. And librarian Bobby did that. She displayed it all throughout the library. I don't know if she wants to say anything about it. Oh, she's at the desk, sorry. But she displayed it in areas where the kids could see it throughout the shelves and the stacks and everywhere, so the kids could go throughout the children's library and see all of their work all the way from January through May. And the kids' faces light up when they see their artwork in the library. It's one of my favorite things to see. Next slide, please. Okay, so for January, we did one technique, which was resistance and salt for watercolor. And we got a lot of submissions. We got over 90 submissions overall. And we had, in the middle of the program, we had about 33 kids signed up and actively participating, I should say. In February, we did Scrapito technique with oil pastel. They would do blending, and then they would also do, you can't see it here, but they would do the scraping where they would reveal the colors underneath. And then in March, they did printmaking. And we did a lot of this with recycled materials. Like for the printmaking, we use other people's egg cartons, the styrofoam from it, and they would imprint on it and then do the print like that. And we would also bring in brochures about the artists themselves. Like for the March one, we did the Great Wave. And we explained all about, how the printmaking was for the Great Wave and all about the artists and the art itself. And in April, we did an ocean collage, and we used recycled magazines and books for that one. And we did that on canvas, and it turned out really nice, and it was, displayed wonderfully because it was rather large. And then, let me see, did I leave anything out? For Miss Tamily Young did the shark weaving. So I don't know if you want to talk about that. Yeah.
Hi, hello everyone. So the shark weaving it came from a project that I did prior to. I did some paper weaving and I looked up on YouTube, and YouTube has tons of tutorials if you're not familiar with doing something. So that's where I started. And then it morphed into the 3D shark. And at first I was a little bit skeptical because you had to weave and we had to use a little bit cardstock, which is a little bit difficult, but they came out great. And the best part of this was that the kids all did different sharks. They all got the same material, but they all have, like, look at those teeth. Like, you can't even, they're so creative, and you forget that. But then when you see everything put together, it all came together. A lot of the ideas you definitely could search. And if you are not as creative, you definitely could go to YouTube to learn how to do some of these things.
Did you want to speak about Baldwin and what you?
Okay, so is that on the next slide?
Oh, that's in between.
Okay, so we could go back. I'm sorry. So, all right. So what ended up happening was I shared with another library that I worked with what we were doing. And the best thing about this particular program is that it could be done in multiple ways. We did it as a take-home kit. The Baldwin Public Library did it as a passive program. So I gave them the information and the material that we gave the children, and then they made it their own. So what they ended up doing was having a table in the children's department with the instructions and directions of each week's project. Now, although they did some similar ones to we did, they turned out different, and they too were able to display in the atrium of the library. So any library can make it their own on any budget that they have, on the supplies that they already have. It's one of the things where, as long as you think about it and you plan it, and you keep your staff informed, it can definitely be done. And they did theirs last summer as well. The same summer we did it, they did theirs.
I'm gonna do that. Yeah, we could. What, James? Okay. All right. Next slide, please. Yeah. For this year, we decided to get a little bit more 3D. I wanted to do a 3-part for the first segment, and then we have another segment as well. So we just started last month doing the clay pots. And today, as a matter of fact, they're going to be sealing them and painting them. And this is air dry clay, and very easy to get in the stores. And then they're going to be creating Van Gogh flowers to go inside the vases, and then they're going to be displayed all throughout the library. So that's the first 3 parts of what they're doing as far as togetherness. And James, are you going to talk about that?
Yep, next slide, please. Finally, my turn. All right, so make this quick. Why do I hear the echo? Tamily, mute yourself. Anywho, we expanded it to an extra month since it was so popular for the Summer Reading Club art show, and it's in person this year instead of take-home kits. For April, we're going to do a continuous abstract line mural. So you start with, you pen on the paper, and then you just make whatever comes to your mind, but you can't lift your pen up at all. It has to be one continuous line for the entire project. For May, it's going to be another printmaking, but this time with the artist Keith Haring. And they're going to make their different people in different shapes or sizes, poses, whatever they want to do. And if the kids like each other's prints, they will use it on their giant print. They can incorporate it in theirs. And then in June, I'm excited to see how this is going to turn out. It's a unity canvas. So the first half of the class, they're going to paint either the left or the right side, whichever side they want of the canvas. That's going to be cut right down the middle. And then halfway through the program, I'm going to have them swap with their neighbor or wherever. Everyone's going to have to swap. And then that person will paint the other half of the canvas for the second half of the program. And when we display those, it will have the child's name on the left side who painted the left side, and then a child's name who painted the right side. So I thought that was great to incorporate. And yeah, and that's the Summer Reading Club art show for this summer. Next slide. I think we have just one more slide. Yeah, looking ahead. So next year, the adventure theme, if you want to incorporate a Summer Reading Club art show. And then in 2025, which I'm really excited for, the theme is art. So, I mean, we're already doing it. Like, this is the second year we're doing this. Definitely going to continue to do it. This is really for grades K to 5, but we do have some younger kids that come in and some older kids too. We're not picky. And I think the next slide is just the questions and our contacts if anybody has any other questions.
I really love the variety of the types of programs here. Weaving sharks, air dry clay, Keith Haring, you all are hitting all of the marks. It's really fantastic. We had some questions, but they've been answered in the chat. But one of them was, what did you call this program?
It was the Summer Reading Club Art. It was the Summer Reading Art. It was a Summer Reading Art Club. Yeah.
Yes,
Summer Reading Art Club.
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that's it, but you have some great comments in the chat. So please take a look there to see your praises, and everyone's so grateful for you sharing your energy and your ideas. Thank you so much, folks. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we are at 10:26. We are going into our first break.
Thank you, Sarah, for starting us off with some good trivia there. I am LJ from the Chautauqua Cattaraugus Library System, Youth Coordinator here. I'm going to be your host for the second hour, moving us on through introducing our great presenters here. Before we get started, just for those of us who have joined since the last hour or popped in the middle of that last hour, please use the chat for any questions for our presenter. If you could just put a Q before the question, that'll help our team find those questions at the end of the presentations to be able to ask those quicker. And then for all of our presenters, just a quick reminder that if you watch the screen where our silver crayon Jack is, he will be holding up the sign for 2 minutes remaining, and then the thank you sign, just to help us stay on track with our pacing here in this hour. So to start us off, we're going to be looking at a pirate treasure hunt. Who doesn't love a good treasure hunt? This is presented by Elizabeth Smith from the Guilderland Public Library. So once your slides are up, it's over to you, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So while you're getting that up, I'll just start talking. So this past summer, we had a pirate treasure hunt at one of our local parks. Myself and two of my co-workers, Amy McCarthy and Brianna Wakowitz, organized and hosted the event. So I'm going to start by going over the program and how it worked on the day, and then I'll get into the behind the scenes tips and helpful ideas. Also, I made a planning guide, which includes all of the documents we made for this program and a step-by-step planning instruction. So I'm going to dump a lot of information on you right now, but don't be alarmed. It'll all be explained in that too if you have any more questions. All right, next slide. So we did 3 back-to-back sessions of the treasure hunt, and each session had 5 teams, or crews as we called them, of course, with a maximum of 5 people per crew. Next slide. Each crew was assigned a color, and which was designated by a dot sticker, and their goal was to find the pieces of their map and assemble it to reveal the location of the treasure. They also had to gather numbers from pirate wanted posters at each location to figure out the combination for their locks. So you can see in the bottom right picture, there's a family assembling their map, and there's an assembled map in the middle, and then a wanted poster hanging up. Next slide. The treasure chest was located along the banks of the river and was guarded by our first mate, Amy, so that no scallywags tried to steal it. And it was held shut by a chain locked with 5 different locks, 1 for each crew. Whenever a crew found the treasure chest, they had to unscramble their combination and then unlock their lock. However, the treasure chest could not be fully unlocked and opened until all of the crews had found the chest and solved their combination lock. So the crews were not competing against each other. They were kind of working together to find and open the treasure chest. Next slide. Once all the crews had found the treasure chest, they opened it up together and claimed their treasure, which was pirate coins and gems, and then goodie bags full of various items. All right, next slide. So now I'm going to go into the behind the scenes logistics. Next. So first, you need to decide where you want to have your treasure hunt, where you're going to hide your treasure. We did ours at a local park, but you could do yours just outside your library or even inside your library, depending on your staffing and areas available to you. The area we chose, which you can see circled in pink, was a little large for the 2 people to cover. So that is something to keep in mind when you're planning. Okay, next. Then you'll decide how many locations you want to have and where you want the treasure to be located. Then make a map. So I made this map in Canva. We had a total of 7 locations for the crews to find, including the treasure chest. And then we also had a starting location, which is the red house. This I made on legal sized paper. You want to put a colorful icon at each location that they're going to find, because this will help them figure out where they need to go. And of course, include an X to mark the spot for the treasure. Each location will also have a snap top container to hold the map pieces. Next. You'll then want to make wanted posters with color-coded digits. These are the numbers they're gathering to unlock their lock. You'll want to make a log of numbers and then the final clue to tell them what order to put their digits into. And I made all of these in Canva, and they're all included in the document you'll get at the end. The log of numbers must have the colorful icons from the map on it so they know where to record their number. So for example, this crew was purple. So from the wanted poster, they grabbed the 6 and wrote it down at whatever location they found it. And once they found all their locations and digits, they got the final clue, which told them to put their numbers high to low. Okay, next slide. So then you'll want to find something to use as a treasure chest. We used one from Oriental Trading. You'll also need locks, a multi-lock holder, and a chain. And then, of course, the fun part, decide what you want to fill your treasure chest with. Next slide. This next part is the most time-consuming part. You need to determine how many pieces to rip your map into. So you'll need 1 for the starting place, which will include the first location they'll visit. This is the one you'll give them to start with. So you can see it has the red house and then the bench in the corner. And then you'll need 1 for every other location, including the treasure chest. Next slide. You'll want to choose the colors for each crew and determine what order you want them to visit each location. So make a handy little chart. It's very important that all crews should visit the locations in a different order, because you don't want them moving in one giant group throughout your location. But the location with the final clue should be the last one visited by all crews. Next slide. So then you rip up your maps. You'll rip up 1 for each crew, and it's really important you do 1 at a time. And if you're doing multiple sessions, thank you, do 1 session at a time. On the back of each map piece, you're going to place a colored sticker, or you can use pencils or markers. It just needs to be really clear so crews pick the right map piece from their container. And then also on the back, you'll want to write, like really tiny in pencil, the location it will be hidden in, the number order in which it will be found, and if applicable, the session number. This information is just for you in case things get mixed up, and to make sure you're putting everything where it needs to go on the day. Next slide. So I also labeled the bottom of each container with the location it would be hidden at. And then as I ripped up each map for session 1, I put the map pieces in the appropriate container. So you can see here, I have the container that's going to be hidden at the tree stump, and all the different crews map pieces that are going to be found at the tree stump are in there, labeled for me and folded in half. And then I took all of those, I paper clipped them together, and I labeled it session 1 tree stump. And then I took all the different location packets from session 1, binder clipped them together, and labeled it session 1. And this is going to be super helpful for you when you're in the midst of your treasure hunt, if you're doing multiple sessions, because you can just grab the session bundle and then quick restock all the different locations. Okay, next slide. One other thing you'll need is a clipboard for each crew. We used extra long clipboards, and then I tied tape and a pen to it. They'll use the tape to put their map together and the pen to record their numbers. And then finally, last slide, you are going to don your best pirate outfits and make sure you have plenty of water because it will be the hottest day of the summer. And then have fun finding the treasure. Last slide. Any questions? You can put them in the chat or you can email me. I know that was a lot of information. The resource packet that I made for you should help a lot too. And my contact information will be in that if you have any other questions.
This was wonderful. Thank you for sharing, and what it looked like it was a great day. There are a couple questions that just came up, and pretty quick ones. The first one, for the color cruise, did you consider using shapes for those who might be colorblind? This came from Christina.
Oh, no, I didn't, but that is a really good point. That's a really good other idea that you could do.
All right. And then the next question came from Eric. Did you have any issues of people who weren't involved in the program picking up or moving the containers or map pieces when they were out in the park?
We did not. So I had myself and one of my coworkers, we were patrolling the area and all of the locations were within our eye line. So I think that helped. And then one of my other coworkers was guarding the treasure chest because that was off a ways on the bank of the river. So I think that is one thing, yeah, you'd have to be mindful of is having people keeping track of the different locations if they're out of sight.
Well, that sounds good. And one last question here. How far in advance did you set up the program?
We scouted out the area multiple times, and then we went, the first one was at 2:30. I think we went to the park around 1:30 to set up, 1 or 1:30 to set up the.
Okay.
It didn't take too long because we had all the containers already full with all the pieces. And so I just had to like stick them at each spot and thumbtack the wanted posters up.
Perfect. One last question before we move on. Did you have a backup for a rain if it was rainy and not extremely hot?
We had started coming up with like how we could do it around inside of our library. But we were debating to do it inside the library or just like reschedule it. Thankfully, we didn't have to do either.
All right. Well, thank you so much for this program on great ideas. And what a great way to get everyone working all together, continuing on with the theme this year.
Yeah, thanks.
So thank you, Elizabeth, for that. We're going to move into Collaboration Kids, presented by Karen Neary from the Emma Clark Library. So Karen, we're going to get your slides up here and then over to you.
All right, thank you. Are you able to hear me? Okay, great. All right, well, I'm Karen Neary, brand new full-time librarian at Emma Clark. So I'm a little bit nervous, but I'm going to do the best I can. So what I'm presenting to you today, it's not really a novel concept probably, but I wanted to share it because I've seen the value in it in promoting positive communication and collaboration with kids. And I know that that's kind of what the theme's all about. So I originally called it Collaboration Kids and for some reason felt the need to change the name to Mission Possible halfway through my planning of all this. So for our purposes, I'm going to say it's about like a 3rd through 6th grade program and about 45 minutes. There are about a million ways to modify it though, to make it a different amount of time, different ages. So we'll stick with this for now though. Next slide, please. Okay, so the objectives are basically for the children to learn and engage in the 3 C's of teamwork. Now, you could argue that there's a lot of aspects to teamwork, but I tried to kind of narrow it down and make it easier for the kids. So I'm sorry, a rookie mistake here that I made, that you have to click through the entire slide, I guess, but the collaboration, communication, and confidence. You also want them to hone their social skills. They'll get to interact with other kids that they maybe haven't met before, have the opportunity to communicate with them. We want to get them moving. And the last one is we want to get them having fun, obviously. And that'll be next slide, please. Okay, so how to play. It's very simple. You have a start line, you have your group of kids, and you have a bunch of equipment, which I'll go into a little bit later. And they're all behind that start line together. And the kids and the equipment all have to make it from the start across the room to a finish line. So you got to get all team members together, all pieces of equipment. And the catch is that they cannot touch the floor. And if they do touch the floor, everyone has to start over. Now, I've never had a problem with this before. Obviously, you don't want to shout out like, Jessica, touch the floor, everybody go back. Again, it's just a togetherness thing. So you say, oh, you got to go back. They have to bring all the equipment back, bring themselves back and try again. So it gives them the opportunity to kind of, it's like a safe environment to fail, I guess you could say, and figure out how you can make things better together. And this is just a little picture of something you could do. This is, they happen to be doing it in a gym class, I guess, and are using some mats. I see they got a Bosu ball and some other stuff. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so before we get into like the actual game, I'm going to try to give you like an outline that I would use for the program. So the first thing would be welcome and an icebreaker. So obviously you want to greet the kids, encourage conversation between them and make them feel as comfortable as possible because they're about to work together as a team with people that they may have no idea who they are. So just trying to create that warm environment. And then next, any kind of icebreaker I think will do. It could be as simple as sitting the kids in a circle and saying, say your name, the school you go to, what's your favorite color, whatever it is. But I did put like a little example of another game you could do in here when you have like a sticker or something on your forehead and you have to find everybody else in the room who has the same sticker using nonverbal communication. So it does get them to interact without even having to talk yet in case someone's really shy. So that was just, you know, an idea I threw in there. And then let's see what we have next. Oh, okay. And then just discuss that. Was that easy or difficult? What was the key to figuring this out? And that kind of segues us into like a little brief teamwork discussion that we can have before we get started. So next slide, please. Okay, so you want to just try to facilitate. Right here, I have a bunch of different prompts that you could just use, ask them, you know, their experiences with teamwork. Someone might love to talk about what they do on their soccer team and how they act like a team and why working together is important, or maybe have some examples of things they've done before. And then if we could click again, please. So throughout the conversation, it should probably be pretty natural to bring up those 3 C's. I wrote a bunch of different buzzwords here that hopefully come out in the conversation about collaboration, communication, and confidence. I know I don't have to define those things for you, but a couple of things that might be good to specifically draw their attention to. For the collaboration, people having different roles. In this game, you'll see they have to sometimes step on something really small. So maybe a small person, that's actually their strength right here, that they're smaller, or maybe someone has kind of a loud voice and they can take a leadership role. And of course, build, you know, figuring out what everybody's strengths are and realizing that you all have different things to bring to the table to reach the goal together. And of course, you're going to take people's individual ideas and bring those together into a group product. Communication, listening to all voices, I think, is a really important one for all the kids. And saying that you can disagree with maybe a way to handle a situation that you're in, but it just has to be done respectfully. And a big one for me is being responsive when someone asks a question or something. Like, I think about like all the Zoom classes I took in library school, and the teacher asked a question and everybody's just sitting there like this, like giving a yes or a no, or not being afraid to give your opinion when someone asks you a question. And then confidence, just trusting yourself and your teammates. And again, use your positive and your negative experiences to make the next try better. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so now we're getting into the actual game. We know that we want to clearly explain the rules to the kids, which we went over before. One thing that you may want to mention to them is if you get past the finish line, don't get so excited that you step back out onto the floor, because I've seen that happen to kids where, like, you know, 3/4 of the kids made it across and they're finishing it out, and then someone steps out onto the back into the playing zone. Everyone's got to go back. So that's one little thing to look out for. And then providing guidance before, between, and after the games. So before the game, you want to teach them how to strategize, talk about those communication concepts and everything, and give them some examples on how to collaborate, communicate, and be confident. And then I'm going to recommend resisting the urge to help during the game. I've seen like equipment go like completely rogue and you're like, oh my gosh, like I should just go get it for them. But no, they will figure out how to go over there, go get it, bring it back, and get themselves and the, all the equipment across. That way they learn by experience. They learn to deal with, you know, some creative problem solving happens. And, you know, when they finally get it together, like that will be their win, not yours. So there's just some more examples of some kids playing. Next slide, please. Okay, so examples of the materials you can use, I would say you just need two like big things where a bunch of kids can fit together on there, and then a bunch of small things, and I will elaborate on that. So let's see what the big equipment could be. Mats, area rugs, balance beams, even like large pieces of cardboard, just anything you find around that you think kids can safely stand on together, that'll work. Examples of small pieces of equipment, just something like a poly spot, they can put their feet in bins or buckets and walk. If you're using like a wooden or a harder floor, if you have scooters and jump ropes, they'll pull each other on those. This kid right here is pulling another kid with a pole and a scooter. Some people use hula hoops and they say if you're in the hula hoop that you're safe, you're not on the floor. And I've seen a million different uses for cones as well. So yeah, they're using all that different equipment to try to figure out how to get across without touching the floor. Next slide, please. Okay, and you're probably saying, well, how long is this going to take? Well, it could take 5 minutes. It could take a half an hour, depending on your kids, your equipment, the size of your room. So I just put a few ideas for different rounds you can have. First one is just, can they do it? See if they can do it. That might take them most of the time, or, you know, it might take just a few minutes. So then you could say, okay, I'm going to time you this time and see how you do. Then another idea would be to try to beat the time that they had before that. And then they could try to beat their previous time again, but you also want to like try to remove a piece of equipment. And then, you know, just it can continue from so on and so forth, remove another piece of equipment and beat that time. So you could use any or all of these really. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to skip this slide. It's a YouTube video of it, but I don't know if that might get messy for us. So let's just go to the last step, which is the reflection. So just I would say reflect with them, have an informal conversation about, you know, things that, what did they do to improve? How did they get better at it as they went along? Was it fun? Did they learn anything? Could they use anything to help them, you know, do better on a team that they're currently on? Next slide. Okay, so if you have any questions about, you know, if you're looking to make it for younger or older kids or teen volunteer program or anything, please feel free to email me. I've played it with kids in 1st through 8th grade pretty much. So yeah, I'd say that's it. And if you just Google Mission Impossible or put that into YouTube, I'm sure you'll see a bunch of videos if you'd like an example of them.
Wonderful. Thank you, Karen. That was such a great program in the collaboration and getting the kids to discuss and problem solve. Sounds like a really fun program to watch them through in their process.
Yeah, I've had a lot of success with it. It's a lot of fun.
That's great. One question that came up from Brianna was, where did you host this program?
Oh, okay. I've actually done it. I was a gymnastics coach, so I've done it in gyms before, and I've also done it as a camp counselor. So basically, I've done it on carpet. It's basically you need either a big open space. So it could be carpeted. I wouldn't use things like scooters and stuff probably, or you could just use a, you know, a wood floor. And I hope to host it at my own library this summer.
Oh, great. And then along the similar line, Sarah asked, do you think this could be adapted for outside?
I would say definitely. And it just depends on what equipment, I guess, you have at your library. I mean, I've never tried that, but I could definitely see it working, you know, using those piece of cardboard here and, you know, using the buckets and stuff to walk around, as long as they can, you might want to just like go out there and see if you can move around safely on whatever equipment. And if you can, then I'm sure they can. And I should also probably mention that you probably want a minimum of 3 or 4 kids, but you can go pretty high with this, probably like 25 kids or something like that.
Oh, that's great. A lot of adaptability, I think, for all different types of libraries and settings. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much again for your presentation and great ideas that you've given all of us.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. We're going to be moving on to Everyone Belongs at GFJ, presented by Erin Singleton from the George F. Johnson Memorial Library. So, Erin, we're going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you. Oh, there's my first slide. Perfect. So hello, everyone. My name is Erin Singleton, and I am the head of youth services here at GFJ, stands for the George F. Johnson Memorial Library, but that's a mouthful. We are here in Endicott, New York, in the 4-county system. And this is a program that we have done a few different times in the past. We have not done it specifically for a summer reading program, but I feel that it would fit really well this summer. So we are talking about you know, being able to utilize that this summer. If you could go to the next slide, please. We started it because we really had in the children's room a large number of special needs, young adults specifically, but also adults and also children. They were coming in with their caregivers. A lot of them have a one-on-one caregiver. A lot of them come in during the day. Some of them come in the evening too. It kind of depends on their specific situation, but they do generally come into the children's room. When they come in, they would do a variety of things. They would use the computers. They would, you know, look through books. We have a coloring table. They would color sometimes. A lot of them, the caregivers kind of have they have really great communication amongst themselves. And so they would say, you know, hey, I want to meet up at the library at 1 o'clock, because I think it's more fun for them if they do that as well. So they would meet at the library so that the special needs adults could, you know, hang out together and have fun with their friends. So we were really trying to find a way to create some sort of opportunity for them that was a little bit more formal to gather at the library, to kind of bring them together. But we wanted to be very careful to not insult them, to not make it too babyish. We wanted to be very careful with our wording. We wanted to make sure we weren't excluding anyone specifically. And this was something, it wasn't specifically for children, but the children's department was kind of doing it because this was the location at the library where these patrons were spending their time. So we really it took us a while to actually do it because we talked about it for a really long time before we actually started. And what we did too is we talked to some of the caregivers. We had some regulars that were in all the time, and we just kind of talked to them about what sorts of things they wanted to see, what they thought would be appropriate, what they thought would work with their clients, and what they thought they would like to do at the library. And it was just kind of a real mixed bag. But the one thing that they all agreed upon was that it would be nice to have a formal time so that they could say, you know, we've done it a few different ways, but the first Monday of the month at 1 o'clock, let's all meet at the library. Or, you know, every other Wednesday at 10 o'clock. We have, the hardest part has been figuring out the right time, because we do have a lot of activities for this community within our area. Especially we've had a Gigi's Playhouse open, and they've had a lot of activities for them as well. But we do still see them at the library, and we wanted to provide something for them as well. So just kind of, we worked hard to find the right way to do this, and just kind of bring them all in and make sure that we included everyone. So although that wasn't the fun part of this program, I would say that it's certainly the part that took us the longest, because we really wanted to make sure that we did it carefully and thoughtfully, and that we were able to include everyone and not, you know, make it that we were excluding or insulting anyone. So that's the point of that. Next slide, please. Thank you. So what I want to do is just show you a variety of some of the things that we did. What we found was the variety of ability and age levels that we had was huge. From those who had very few motor skills to those who, you know, had exceptional motor skills. It was across the board. So we tried to kind of put out a little bit of everything so that we had things for different interest levels, different ability levels, so that everyone could sit and just have something fun to do, but also just sit at a table with their friends who might be of a different ability level and have things to do together. So the coloring and activity sheets was one. Coloring sheets are obviously easy. We would have, you know, things that we would have left over from our preschoolers all the way up to adult coloring sheets. As you can see in a couple of the pictures, the adult caregivers would enjoy coloring too. I don't know about you guys. I'm always happy to sit and color. So, you know, just all kinds of coloring activities. Then things like mazes, word searches. We have some stencils we put out. Also some of the rubbing plates. I didn't put those on here, but we did put those out. We have some fall leaf ones that we put out one time. So puzzles, again, all different ability levels. We did like from 4-piece to about 75 to 100-piece because they weren't here for a long time. So, you know, they couldn't, even those who had the ability to do a more difficult puzzle, you know, didn't have the time to do it. And then the first time we did it was in the fall. So we also were able to do a lot of seasonal things. I'm sure as you all know, like fall is a great time to do the seasonal things. But, you know, we could put things out with pumpkins and with apples, and then we had Thanksgiving things and, you know, getting into winter, we had some holiday things too. So we could theme our coloring and activity sheets to that as well. So that made it pretty easy. Next slide, please. Then we also did some make and take crafts. These are just kind of examples of ones that we did, but for a November activity on the left, we did one where we cut out basically what looks like an ear of corn out of construction paper. And then we just had like some popcorn that you glue on to there. So that could be any level. So you could have the caregiver, you know, could put the glue on, they could put the popcorn on, or they could do it all themselves, or, you know, any variety of combination could work for that. On the right-hand side, I have I use this photo because we got 2 different craft tables in there. Thank you. So we got in the foreground is the one we just did like a decorate the ornament. We just put out some foam ornaments, glue, you know, sequins or color or anything like that to those. The one in the background, we did the easy, like put out beads and pipe cleaners and you can make wreaths or candy canes or snowflakes or whatever. So again, that was good for fine motor skills, but it was also something that they can make, something that they could do. And for some of the individuals, it was something that they could do on their own. For some, it was something that their caregiver needed to help them with. So it could be adjusted to a variety of levels. Next slide, please. And then we tried to have some other things that unfortunately, I couldn't find pictures for a few of them, but we have these blocks that you see in the foreground are called wobbly blocks. They're just kind of unevenly shaped, and then they come with these pictures that it reminds me of tangrams. They show you kind of different shapes to create. We got those years ago, and we just pull them out when we need something extra to do. Those were pretty successful. We have like some building sticks that have notches in them that you can put together. Those are kind of the colorful things on the tray in the background there. I didn't have pictures of them that I could come up with right now, but we also would put out Legos sometimes, even Duplos, or we would put tangrams out, things like that. So just something that, you know, not everybody wants to sit and write or draw or use their hands or things like that. And so this was a little bit more active, but still well within their ability level. So that was another thing that we were able to do. And I think it is the last slide, please. Yes, so this is just my contact info. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have questions. I think I saw a couple of questions come up in the chat too. If I
Yeah,
can
there was a
find them.
couple here. Thank you for this. You got a lot of acclaims for this program. It sounds amazing.
It was
Um,
good. It wasn't so hard, and I was glad we were able to finally just stop thinking about it and actually do it.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. The first question that came up was from Christina. Do you host this program year round or on a regular schedule?
So when we started, we did it monthly
Mhm.
and we were doing it year round. COVID hit and we stopped. So we've kind of done it irregularly since then. I would like to at some point start it up a little bit more regularly, and we have not yet. But I was thinking that it really fits into the summer theme well. So I was thinking maybe that would kind of be my excuse to start it more regularly again. So yes and no, we've kind of done both. So however it seems to work best for you, I guess.
No, that's good. And you're right, it really does fit into the theme of all together in that
Yes.
community. Were there any local organization or places that you reached out to promote this program?
Yeah, so we started with just some of the individual caregivers that come to our library. We have a couple of local organizations here. I don't know how widespread they are. We have a Southern Tier Independence Center, so whatever that version of is in your community. We also have Achieve, and then there are a couple of kind of like companies that do the brokering for the caregivers. So we reached out to people through those. Then, like I said, we have a Gigi's Playhouse, which I know is like a national organization, but I don't know where they have local chapters. So we reached out through them as well. At the time, we also had a local Boys and Girls Club that has since closed, but that was a place that a lot of this community spent their time as well. So we were also able to, we had a relationship with them and we're able to hang up some posters there. So just kind of by talking to these people, finding out where they hung out and doing that.
That's great outreach right there. Back to the popcorn. Did you use popped or unpopped popcorn?
We used, I wish I could remember. I think we used unpopped. I honestly don't remember. It was, that was a before COVID craft and I'm trying to remember. I think we've done it both ways. I think for that one we used unpopped, but we've also done it for like a preschool story time where we didn't want it to be a choking hazard and we used popped. So I believe that craft can be done either way.
Excellent. We like versatility. And then
Yes.
last question here. Did you have any registration for the events? And if you do you see higher enrollment during the day or evening for people coming out?
Yeah, we did not do registration. We kind of toyed with the idea and decided that it was a little bit complicated because we have the parents of the participants who are coming, and then we have the caregivers who are with them on different days. And it just kind of, it was an added step that made it a little bit more difficult. And so we decided not to. We were, of course, nervous that if it became too popular, that was going to be an issue, but we were okay with that. It worked out fine.
Yeah.
We held it mostly during the day. We locally have like a fairly large group of 20 to 30-year-olds that are with their caregivers during the day. Obviously, if you have a different community near you, you might find that a different time works better. But that was what we were seeing coming into the children's room. So that was when we held it and had the most success.
That sounds great. Adapting to the community and providing great resources to a great group of people. Thank you so much, Erin, for sharing. this
Absolutely. Thank you,
program
guys.
And all the work you've done.
Well, welcome to the third and final hour of our children's workshop this morning. We're really glad that you've been able to be with us this morning. My name is Heidi, and I am from the Finger Lakes Library System in upstate New York. So Ithaca, if anybody out there is in my system, shout out to everybody there and everybody here this morning. Just a couple of quick things in case you might have missed it this morning. If you do have questions for our presenters, woohoo, neighbor in STLS territory. If you do have questions for our presenters, if you could just put a Q in front of it and then put it in the chat. That way we have folks all together here on the back end. They're putting those questions together for me so I can ask them of our presenters. And presenters, if you could keep an eye on our silver crayon, Jack, I think he is out there somewhere. He's keeping time for us today. So the silver crayon will let you know how much time you have left in your presentation, but we're about to get started and we've had a little bit of rearranging going on. So I think I'm going to get this right. We're going to kick off the third hour with Soaring, a community art project, which is going to be presented by Deborah Hempy and Patty Jackman, and they are from the Middle Country Public Library.
Hi,
Hello.
thanks. Okay, so at Middle Country, we started doing annual community art projects in 2016. All of the prior projects involved working with specific artists and culminated in permanent art installations. They were all hugely successful and well received by the community. But this past summer, we were looking to do something a little less involved that would not necessarily result in a permanent installation, but where we could still follow the format that we had done for the past several years, which is where we started with a kickoff to the project in the beginning of the summer. And then throughout the summer, we pushed into existing programs such as our summer reading club kickoffs for all ages, from children, teens, and adults, into existing other programs. We have outdoor concerts in the summer. We have some teen nights, and then we added drop-in times as well, which we planned looking at the schedule of other programs that would bring traffic to the library, and then offered those drop-in sessions prior to or after those programs. Next slide. So this year's project was inspired by the many winged murals that have become popular around the country. Doing a Google search for collaborative art projects, I came upon a blog post about a winged mural project that was completed at an elementary school. I did put the link to that blog in the chat already. And then after showing it to administration and to Patty, we decided to go ahead with the project, and we called it Soaring, a creative community project. And then now Patty is going to share with you on the next slides the process from start to finish. So next slide.
Next slide, please. Okay, so designing the feathers. First off, I did a Google search just for looking for line drawings of feathers. Deborah and I selected a few. We modified them to meet our needs. We were trying to look for something that would be easily duplicated and easily cut out after they were colored. And also, if you're looking for similar ones, you'll find that a lot of feathers kind of look like leaves. And so we definitely wanted them to look more like feathers. Then patrons and staff made patterns on the feathers and added color to the feathers. We had these large panels made by teens in our teen advisory club. They painted patterns on poster boards. And like Deborah mentioned, we did this at a lot of different programs where we just had a table set up where people could come over, children, teens, adults, and draw patterns and color in the different feathers. Next slide, please. Then came the planning the size and the shape. The area where the wings were going to hang in our library was measured, and I drew that to scale. So we knew about how big it was going to be. You can see in the little drawing on the left-hand side, I put in like an average height person so we could see what it would look like. And then those were transferred onto brown craft paper. It's the same paper we use to cover our tables during any program. So we had that available and drew them up to scale. So they were at their full size. Next slide, please. These large wings on the brown craft paper were then cut out, and the large poster board pieces that the teens made were sort of arranged. We decided sort of how they could be cut and arranged to fit on there. These large sections then allowed the smaller feathers to be taped to them. We taped this using clear book tape at the top of each of these poster board sections so that each section could kind of lift up a little bit. so we could put the leaves on, the wings, the feathers.
The
on.
feathers.
Thank you. Next slide, please. And then came the layering of the feathers. So we had two different shapes of feathers, and we just tried to kind of put them back and forth, just randomly place them. We slipped them underneath the poster board sections and rearranged any just so we didn't have like too many of one color in one area and blank spaces in another area. And once we roughly laid them all out, then we were able to tape them down. We used clear double-sided tape to stick everything. I should say in between that, we had cut all of the feathers out of the cardstock and counted them. So we had a total count of feathers that then we knew we could divide in half. So we had an even amount on each wing. Layering the feathers, and then next slide, please.
Okay, so we did have 244 feathers, which were incorporated into the final mural. The installation was on display from mid-October through the very beginning of January, and patrons were invited to take their photos in front of the wings and then to post it to Instagram using our hashtag MCPL Soaring. We, just as all of our other community art projects, we had great participation in the project itself. Would say for this project, the social media aspect was not as successful as we would have liked. And so we, if we were to do it again, might approach that a little differently. But overall, it's a great project for all ages. You just need to find a place in your library and scale your size to the spot that you have. And really, it just used basic materials. We used cardstock, markers, colored pencils, some poster board, some white paint, and the brown craft paper. That was really it. I saw somebody asked in the chat if we started in the spring or the summer. This particular, we have some like mosaic murals and stuff that we did some with some artists. Those we did start in May, but this we started in June. We actually, the kickoff of the project was the summer reading club kickoffs, which were towards the end of June. Were there any other questions in the chat? Let's see.
So there, just a couple of quick comments too. You had mentioned, somebody put this in the chat, that it's a very Instagrammable thing. So just to be able to show what you're doing, all this work that you're putting into it. And we do have a couple more questions here. One asks, can you give an approximate dimension for each wing? How big were these?
Overall, it was 15 feet wide.
Yeah, so like each wing was about 6 or 7 feet.
Great. And so some really logistical questions here. How did you get it to adhere to the wall? Like, was it too heavy? Did it pull away?
Oh, so we actually, it's a panel system on the backside of our bookcases. So we use those like super large binder clips and wrapped the paper over the top and then clipped it on.
And then
the wings themselves. So I put the black bulletin board paper up that way, and then the wings themselves, it's all just double stick tape, clear double stick tape, lots of it.
And it stayed up fine for the entire 3 months that it was up.
Wow. And you have a couple folks on here that say that they have a feather up there too. So you've got some people who are also participating with you, which is great. And this one I thought was kind of an interesting question from Eric. Did you use Patterson's Maximum Ride series as part of the interest or anything like that? Did you pair it with any books?
We did not. That is an interesting thought. But no, we didn't. It wasn't paired with any books. It was just incorporated into ongoing programs that we had in the summer.
Great. But I love that folks kind of listen to these ideas that other folks have done and then start to build and riff off of them. So
that's a great idea.
It's part of the beauty of these programs. So just checking to see if I got all the questions. And I think you sort of answered Joyce's. Did you have a one-time program where they decorated the feathers, or was it done randomly?
So randomly, basically we put them out at a table at different programs that we had and sort of a, drop in or an engaging, like, would you like to come over and do this? We also had them set up in the in our community room, like for our staff to do on their break.
Yeah, staff were able to participate as well. I mean, not throughout the whole summer, but certain days and times we had them out for them to participate. And yeah, we have 2 large outdoor concerts, and we have an outdoor teen competition, like music competition night. So we always have our community art project outside for those events as well, and people can just stop by throughout those events that run for several hours to participate.
Great. So lots of opportunities to participate.
Yeah.
And,
some people participate multiple times,
Great.
that's fine
Yeah.
too.
great. And as a crayon, I love this question. Did you use a limited color palette?
No,
No.
all the markers and all the colored pencils were out at all of the events. So depending on what the patron preferred using. Yeah, and it's interesting too to see when we got the feathers back and when we were placing them in the mural, so that they weren't too many brightly colored marker ones together. We would, put a couple colored pencil ones in between.
Also, I mean, our original idea was that the feathers were kind of broken up into areas like that you could draw patterns, and we had examples of patterns that you could make, and many examples for people, ideas. And while some people, maybe like half, actually drew patterns and colored it, we also in our museum corner had a pattern exhibit going on last
Great.
summer, so we were
Great.
trying to tie in with that. But
I'm gonna interject here a little bit. I'm getting some messages that we've hit the time. It just kind
Okay.
of got away from us here, but there's so much good information here. And just one thing, any information you have, you're going to share with folks that are going to get the recording. So your approach, any maybe patterns that you have, things like that. I see some questions in the
sure, and
chat,
that
but
blog post that we used, which we really followed, is in the chat already.
great. Well, thank you so much. I think this got so much interest. I think a lot of folks are going to be trying this summer. So thank you so
Great.
much for sharing this idea.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. What we have up next is something really exciting. So I almost kind of want to stand up for this. And I would encourage everybody else to do that too. If you've been sitting for 3 hours, you definitely want to get up and move. We have free play dancey party. Is it dancey party?
Sure, why not?
Okay. Dance party. And Kathy Buxbaum from the Lynbrook Public Library is going to tell us how she does this. This is amazing. Go ahead. It's all you.
Thank you. So hi, I'm Kathy Buxbaum. I'm from the Lynbrook Public Library, which is in Lynbrook, New York, on Long Island, part of the Nassau Library System, where Uniondale is. Lynbrook's about half the size of Uniondale. So we're about 16,000. So, and I'm really lucky. I'm the assistant director, but we're a nice library that they still allow me to do children's programming. So I'm very excited about that. So next slide. So what is a free play dance party? Well, it's for families with children from 3 to 5 years old and their siblings and any kids who want to be there. And it's exactly what it sounds like. So Lynbrook has this long program room, and I divide the room in half, and one half is the dance floor and one half are these free play sections and stations. So the original inspiration for this program was my New Year's Eve party, which I had done the same way. I had dancing on one side and free play stations on the other. So now I've taken New Year's Eve to the summer. So next slide, thanks. So first you need free play stations. So what are free play stations? Free play stations are activities, games, building blocks, etc. These stations are stationed throughout the room so that kids can play on their own or play with parents or play with other kids or play with volunteers. And it's a family program, so we encourage the parents to play with their kids. Some of them do, some of them sit on the side, and that's okay too. We really want to encourage everyone to join in the fun. So my free play stations are based on what my library already owns. So we've done some programming, we have extra activities, And I also am lucky enough that my system, the Nassau Library System, has a lending library too, that I'll use some of their items also. So here's some examples of my free playstations. So next slide. This reminds me of Mission Impossible. It's hot lava. So they build a course we have sensory stepping stones and a sensory balance beam that the kids get to put away in any way that they want, and they walk on it, and be careful not to fall into the hot lava. I mean, I'm sure you guys remember playing this as a kid. It's so much fun. And sometimes the volunteers help, sometimes parents are into it. It's really a great time. These stepping stones and sensory balance beams can be found at almost any educational store for children. We got them at Lakeshore and Discount School Supplies. Next slide. We have a large Connect 4. You can see the kids playing with it right there. Really simple. They love it. It's big. It's fun. Next slide. We have a Velcro dartboard and a beanbag toss. And I have scary faces because that was originally bought for my Halloween Storytime program. And the volunteers, we have no issues with people throwing stuff around the room or anything like that. They really just stick to their stations and they're just really having a good time. Next slide, please. So as I said, not every station that I have is materials that I purchased. Luckily, my system, the Nassau Library System, has a lending library for all the libraries in the system where we get to borrow these cool items. So the Coda Pillars inspires little learners to be big thinkers and encourages preschoolers to arrange and rearrange the segments and push them to go. And he has bright sounds and fun and, bright lights and cool sounds. And it's a very popular station. We have Kiva planks where every piece is exactly the same size and shape, but there's no glue and no connections. It's just simple stacking. And of course, with kids knocking down, that's so much fun. And the parents really enjoy that too. And then we have Manga Tiles, which are a construction system toy that's magnetic. So they do the similar things. They build all these things. There's not as much knocking down with the Manga Tiles, but that's encouraged for ages 3 and up. Next slide. And of course, we have the classic cardboard blocks. I remember playing with those as a kid 40 something years ago, and they're so much fun and the kids really enjoy it. Next slide. Then we get to move to the dance party. That's on the other half of the room. So let's get ready to boogie on down. You can see I love this part. It's so much fun. Next slide. So at the Lynbrook Library, I have this huge screen, and I'm so lucky that I have this, that I make videos using Canva to play. And I just basically press play and it goes for the whole program. So on the floor, I'll have round circle tiles that are designed for kids to jump on and they just have fun. My floor is carpeted, so my things don't really move at all, but all these items actually come with grippers. So if you have a linoleum floor or something, you can safely grip them there so there won't be an issue for the kids and they won't be slipping and sliding and banging their heads or something like that. So let's get dancing. Next slide. So this is a sample video I would make that's I show on the screen. You don't have to use videos if you don't have screen. Any music is great. The screen and the video for me just adds a little extra pizzazz. So if we have time, I'd love to play this video. It runs about 2 minutes and 10 seconds.
So this was sent as a PDF, so there's no video for me to click.
Oh, I'm sorry. But you know what? We'll send it out there. Tell me how, and we'll send it out there. Of course, the song is All Together Now, it's that song, and it's really fun. And I hope everybody can see it when we get it sent out because it really makes it really fun. So next slide. So here's some pics from my New Year's Eve party. As you could see the circles on the floor, which we round up running around on them, jumping on them. Sometimes there was tag. It was just really super fun. And sometimes the videos had dance moves that the kids could do at the same time. You could see some of the video pictures there. And I would dance with the kids and make up my own moves too. the kids would come and go constantly. It would be just a lot of different kids doing different things, go play, come dance, go play. They like this song, they don't like this song. And as you can see, there's a lot of white balls on the floor because this was New Year's Eve. We had at noon, we had, yay, countdown, and we threw stuff and we threw snowballs. So the second half, we had a snowball fight. And I don't really see that in the summer. I'm hoping that maybe I'll have suns or hearts or something, because the kids really love to like throw fun stuff and they really love to throw stuff at me. And as you could probably tell, I love to be part of the entertainment and I just really have a great time. So next slide. Because it is a family program, it's easier for me to be a part of the entertainment, a part I love. And dancing also gives me the opportunity to walk around and move around and to check in with my volunteers and to check in with kids, and I'm dancing and having fun all at the same time. I use volunteers to set up and break down the program. They set up the stations, they break down the stations. They roam during free play to see if the kids need help. If there's a free play station that's been abandoned, they can reset it up. They can also play with the kids. I'm very clear with my volunteers what exactly I need. And especially like the New Year's Eve, I told them, I need you here at this time to throw the stuff. That was very important. And it's been working so far, so good. They know what I need and they've really come up and shown up and done it. But I think the most important part is to have fun. Pick music you enjoy. I pick music from all age ranges. So I had the Beatles, I had Katy Perry, I did the Monkees. I'm a big Monkees fan. So it was just a wonderful, wonderful good time. Next slide. So thanks for listening. I really hope that video can get out there because that's just so fun. I love it. And if you have any questions, please ask.
Right. So there are a few questions, and we
Awesome.
will definitely get that video out to folks. If you send it to us, we send it on to them. So it's really
Right.
easy to do. So let's see. We got a list of questions here. First one, I think you answered was sort of the age group, but and you also mentioned that you use Canva to make the video and the music. So Rose had a couple of questions. She wanted to know, are circles part of an organized dance? And is the dance floor and the video going on at the same time as the activity stations?
So yes, since the room is so large, I have one half that has the video and the dance. So the music could be heard throughout the whole thing. And the circles are just on the floor to make like a dance floor. And the kids, if they jump on them, if they don't use them, if they do use them, it's very organized chaos. And it's really just a real fun time. I hope that
Right,
answers that question.
Kind of, I guess that's kind of an interesting question to ask on the heels of, saying it's organized chaos. We do have a question from Eric, wondering, do you have a more sensory sensitive version of this that you offer or could consider offering?
Definitely, I could consider offering it. We haven't had requests for it. We do have had sensory story times and other sensory things like that. The music isn't blaring. My son personally has sound sensitivities, and he actually was a volunteer and he was okay. So, but we would definitely consider, if we're very go with the flow and really want to please everyone who attends. So we're quick to make adjustments if it's possible.
Perfect. Great. Well, Kathy, thank you so much. We can't wait to see that video. Great ideas. So I know a lot of folks are kind of excited about it in the chat there. Perfect. Thanks so much, Kathy.
You're welcome. Thank you. Am I muted now?
Great. And we're going to actually go back to a presentation we were going to have in the second hour. We think we're all set for it now. We're going to go back to the Magic Door presented by Mariana Sprouse from the Ethelbert B. Crawford Public Library. So Mariana, welcome. It's all you.
Hi, thank you, everybody. I'm so sorry that I was late to the program. Difficulties as we were talking about earlier, but I'm excited to share this idea with you. And so, as you already heard, it's the Magic Door. It's exploring the world one program at a time. Next slide, please. Okay, so before we get started, I definitely want to introduce myself. My name is Mariana Sprouse. I am new to New York. I've been here for about 2 months now. I just moved up here from Maryland. I am a self-professed history nerd, a lover of books, travel, yarn, ghosts, witches, fall, and chocolate. And when I say I'm an inadvertent teacher, I did everything that I could with my degrees to avoid being a teacher, and here I am teaching anyway. But I absolutely love it. This is my family, including my dogs. Everybody loves cute dogs. Yes, Columbia, Missouri. Awesome. Yeah, it's a great place. If you guys ever get there. Anyway, next slide, please. Okay, so here we are. Welcome to the Magic Door. Make sure I have my spiel. You have just stepped through the magic door and we are magically transported to ancient Egypt. Next slide, please. So today we're going to tour down the Nile. We're going to learn all about the Egyptian pharaohs and gods and the cities that are along the Nile. We're going to see all of the hieroglyphs and learn new things. And then we're going to do some crafts and activities. Next slide, please. Okay, so as you can see, we're going to make some really fun Egyptian collars. We can translate things from hieroglyphs into English and vice versa. We're gonna make some mummy cats and we're gonna wrap the mummies as mummies as well. So jumping into all of this, as you can see, we definitely had fun with the toilet paper. And I had papers of Egyptian gods and goddesses taped up onto the wall so kids could learn about each one. And then if they came and told me about, you know, X number, 5 or 3 of them at a time, then they would get a cookie. And so they really loved the cookies and they got to learn about a lot of gods and goddesses that way. And some of them, they actually even remembered when they left. Okay, next slide, please. So rather than go into the whole program, that's basically how I start everything, is I kind of welcome them. I say that we're magically transported. I talk about where we're going, and then we do a lesson and the crafts and activities. And the origins, basically, I needed to come up with a program that was geared towards 6 to 11-year-olds. I wanted something that was completely different from what we had offered at our, this was all in Maryland at my previous library. So anything completely different than what we offered. And I wanted it to incorporate all of my interests, which is why I included them at the beginning. So I wanted something that would teach a little bit of history, teach a little bit of culture, a little bit about geography. And this was coming off the tails of having just read the Magic Treehouse books to my son. So it was pretty heavily inspired by the Magic Treehouse books. Magic School Bus is now kind of incorporating its way in there as well when I get a little bit more sciencey with some of my themes. The door, I wanted to keep magic because magic, it's fun, but the door part was because I needed to have something that magically transported us. And so I needed something that sounded cool. Magic carpet would have been cool, but they're already in the program room at that point, and the carpet's always there. And I wanted something better than the magic program room. So I came up with the magic door, because as they walk through the program room door, they're magically transported. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, and so the elements of the Magic Door program, I want to incorporate learning, crafts, activities, books, and then extension activities to take home. Every program that I do, I try to balance fun and education at the same time. I think that's really important for engaging our community. It also encourages parents to bring their kids because they love it when their kids are learning things, but I want the kids to enjoy themselves as well. I do a balance of crafts and activities. So we have quiet things that the kids can do if they're a little bit more of the quiet type, the arts and craftsy kind of people. But then you always have your rowdier kids. And so I try to have a more physical element as well, just so that they are engaging just as much as everybody else, and they're really getting something out of it. The books were kind of an obvious thing. We're a library, so I would display books that people could read to explore further on the topic, take home. Maybe the homeschool parents would be able to turn it into something that they can use in their curriculum. You know, maybe just have fun with it, right? They barely ever get checked out. You guys might experience that as well. Some parents definitely liked the books, but for the most part, they already have their curriculums in place. So they really don't check out the books as much. So I don't put as much of an effort into doing book displays anymore, but I do still try to have the books there if at all possible. Just this week, actually, on Monday, I had a Magic Door program, and the way that I incorporated a book this time was I started the program by reading a book that takes place in the country that we were studying. So that was one way to incorporate it as well, and they really engaged with that a lot more than just having the display. As for the extension activities to take home, I don't do that every month. It's really theme dependent. If there's like recipes that tie into the theme that they can do at home together to make snacks, that's one that I do a lot. Or if there's like little trivia quizzes or things that they want to take home and do with the kids, sometimes I'm able to find free printable books that I make available to them so they can learn a little bit more, or maybe color them when they get home. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so if you want to set up your own program, I would say pick a location, time, or event, research the topic enough to be able to teach it. So research the heck out of it. And then look up crafts and activities to relate to that theme. I definitely recommend practice making them ahead of time, because there have been times where we realized it takes way too long for this to dry. The kids are not going to be able to engage with this during the program. Hot glue guns burn fingers. And if you know that the kids that are coming are younger, that's a bad thing. And if you do want to incorporate books, you're definitely going to want to pull some to display. And you want to do that far enough ahead of time that you can pull from within the system as much as necessary. Next slide, please. Okay, and that's me. So you have my contact information. This year, to tie into the theme, when I was researching the summer reading theme, I realized a lot of libraries are using countries. And so I decided to heavily focus on countries this year. So every month is a new country. And we did Australia in January. I did Brazil this month. I'm doing India to celebrate Holi next month. Then we're going to do Kenya. And then rather than doing countries, I like to focus on rainforests and oceans to tie into Earth Day and World Ocean Day. And those kind of help you relate to a lot of the countries that we've learned about. I'm going to do South Korea, Japan, Mexico, China, Peru, and Turkey all this year. And
that's like a world tour right there.
It is a world tour. And in the past, I've done civil rights movement, ancient Egypt, obviously. I did the American colonies. I've done a ton of them so far. So I have a lot of ideas and plans in place that I'm more than happy to share with people if this is something that you want to get started.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much, Mariana. You definitely answered the question of why the Magic Door. That is actually the perfect name for this program. Somebody mentioned this is a great partnership to have with schools. And we did have a question in the chat. Maybe we could just think about for a moment. Do you consider this an independent program, or is the caregiver recommended to attend the program as well?
You mean independent in terms of the kids want to attend?
Yeah, just the kids kind of showing up on their own, or do you encourage a caregiver to come?
Oh, that's what you mean. Yes, it could be both. I've had
Okay,
both,
great.
definitely. Because of the wide age range, I've actually had some of my preschool parents bring their kids as well. They're a little bit young for the knowledge, but it's very helpful when the parents stay. In Maryland, we had a family where their children had special needs and were on the spectrum. And so having the parents there to help them with the crafts was really important.
Absolutely,
It
absolutely.
definitely depends on the parents knowing their kids, and they kind of learn that after sitting in. Here in New York, because it's a smaller room, I've actually just had the kids. It's been very independent, and that's actually worked great. It really can be either way.
It's just kind of reading the crowd. Perfect. Well, thank you
Exactly.
so much. We're going to make sure all that information goes out to folks, and we're going to move into another presentation, but thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to turn it over to Renee from the Summer Reading Collab team here, who's going to talk a little bit about decoration ideas. Renee, it's all you.
Okay, thank you, Heidi. Can you hear me? Okay. I was going to also open it up first to all of you. If you have any decorating ideas, you could either put them in the chat or you could just unmute yourself and start talking. I can't see everybody, so I can't, if you raise your hand, I might not see you. But I'm going to just be silent for a couple seconds or so. And if you have a decorating idea, please unmute yourself and speak. Not going to be surprised if you don't have any ideas, because I think this is one of the most challenging themes that we've had in a while. I've been doing this for a while and it's hard. So I thought what I would do is, excuse me, the CSLP had a symposium in December, and their last session at that almost all-day symposium was called Decorating Together. I can't go through all these slides. I will definitely put, when we send out the resources, we will definitely put this link in the resources list. But they had some really fun things. And what they did was they kind of based it on the artwork by Frank Morrison. So either the early literacy, the children's, the teen, or the adult. And then they took those posters and kind of got ideas from them. So here's some decorations ideas with a photo montage of Polaroids holding up a favorite book. They had tangrams. I'm going to scroll through a lot of this. Here's create a giant themed street drawing. Okay, so that's really cool. You need an artist to help you with that. But you had some craft paper and people doing things. They put a park bench and set up a fun reading space or photo opportunity in your library. Gather together on the bench and share conversation. Where do you read? Of course, Stick Together, if you know them, they're a company that you can order these little mosaic puzzles. And they actually did one based on the theme this year. So you can go to their website, Stick Together, just Google Stick Together mosaic and you'll get it. Print handprints or people cutouts and have the kids place them around a tree or a heart as they visit the library. Marching feet. Oh, die cuts of shoes and design your own sneaker, or add a bulletin board and laminate it, stick the feet to the floor. Some playlists and audiobooks. I love this tiny art gallery. I think that is just the best. So they bring in a tiny art for the exhibit. Origami garland, so you've made them all together. You could put up a prompt in the library and allow patrons to respond. One prompt I thought of, my committee's so sick of hearing this, but I woke up one day and I thought, what goes together? Like peanut butter and jelly. Can you think of two other things that go together? And I thought a library could definitely do a wall of that, like Bert and Ernie, Frog and Toad, or you could do characters that go together. It's choose your own adventure right there. A self-portrait gallery. Yeah, that is just beautiful. Look at this with the kids. They created a collaborative. I love this. Be the eye in kind, and you could have a photo booth. Here's a community mural. Photo frames were always popular. Here's another bench. This is cool. The puzzle piece display. You buy a giant blank puzzle and you leave out the pieces for people to decorate. Here's the cutouts. You put your faces in there. Interactive book display. So you guys probably know these, but you do a prompt and you put the books out based on what comes in. Here's what language does your family speak? And then this was April, this was Poetry Month, so they had some words that people could make. Of course, you have to monitor that. You never know what people will come up with. All right, so keeping going, community quilt. Well, if you have a quilting guild in your town, this would work very well. There's more murals. Look at this book art and bookend art. I thought that was fun. Peace poles, decorated garden posts. I know gardening is really popular now. I know Uniondale's has a really robust garden, and a few of our other libraries are doing gardening. So if you're doing gardening, think about a peace pole or your kindness rock. So I'm just going to go through this. It's kind of long. And if you don't know, CSLP has a Facebook group, and I would highly recommend you follow them. I'm going to put the link in the chat right now. They just had a photo of a bulletin board that someone came up with, and it was the library puts the unity in community. And it was just like someone had drawn houses and maybe some buildings from your community. But I would take it one step further, and maybe if you have like a really good art student or you have an art guild, maybe they could really do a rendering of some buildings in your community that are actually in your community, in like a pizza place or the Starbucks or the coffee shop or whatever, the firehouse, things like that. So I definitely would encourage you to do that. And we're going to send the slides out that I just posted. So does anyone have any questions or has thought of a decorating idea in the ensuing few minutes that I've been speaking?
Renee, folks have been putting stuff in the chat. Some folks have been inspired by some of the stuff they've seen here today, and they're taking that back to their library to decorate with. But lots of great stuff. Folks are doing a lot of different colored themes. Yeah, all kinds of, and again, that CSLP Facebook page, nonstop ideas. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just like riff off of it, right? What's right for your community.